The snow came early that winter of 1878, blanketing the New Mexico territory in a silence so complete that Owen Lancaster thought he might be the last living soul left in the world. He had been tracking a missing mare for 3 days when he saw the dark shape against the white expanse, crumpled beneath a twisted juniper tree like discarded clothing. Owen's gelding snorted, breath steaming in the frozen air, and he urged the animal forward with cautious pressure from his knees. As he drew closer, Owen realized with a jolt that the shape was human. A woman, judging by the long black hair spilling across the snow like ink on paper. She wore deerskin clothing that had once been finely made but was now torn and stained. Her lips held a blue tinge that made Owen's heart hammer against his ribs. He dismounted quickly, his boots crunching through the icy crust, and knelt beside her. When he touched her shoulder, she stirred, and dark eyes fluttered open to meet his. They were eyes filled with such profound sorrow that Owen felt the emotion like a physical blow. "Easy now," he said softly, as he would to a frightened horse. "I am not going to hurt you." The woman's lips moved, barely a whisper. Owen leaned closer, his ear near her mouth. The words came in accented English, each syllable an effort. "My people left me." 4 words that contained a universe of pain. Owen looked into her face, saw the Apache features, the traditional markings on her clothing, and understood immediately the tragedy those words implied. He knew the Apache bands were being pushed harder every year, forced onto reservations or hunted across the territory. Sometimes the old or sick were left behind when a band had to move quickly. This woman appeared young, perhaps 20 summers, but there could be 100 reasons her people had made such a terrible choice. "I have got you now," Owen said, stripping off his heavy coat and wrapping it around her thin frame. "Can you ride?" She managed a small nod. Owen lifted her easily, surprised at how light she was, and settled her onto his gelding. He swung up behind her, keeping one arm around her waist to hold her steady against his chest. She slumped back against him, and he could feel the cold radiating from her body through his shirt. He turned the horse south toward his ranch, abandoning the search for the mare. That animal could find its own way home or not. This woman would die if he did not get her warm soon. The ride back to his ranch took 2 hours that felt like 2 days. Owen kept talking to the woman, knowing that if she fell asleep she might never wake. He told her about the ranch, about the cattle he raised, about the weather and the land and anything else that came to mind. Occasionally she would murmur something in response, sometimes in English, sometimes in her own language. "What is your name?" he asked at one point. "Liyana," she whispered. "Liyana Ashkiai." "Owen Lancaster," he replied. "And you are safe now, Liyana Ashkiai, I promise you that." His ranch house came into view as the sun began its descent toward the western mountains. It was a modest structure, built with his own hands over the past 5 years since he had claimed this land. Wood and stone, sturdy against the elements, with a good fireplace and tight shutters. Owen had never been so grateful to see it. He carried Liyana inside and laid her on his bed, the only bed in the single large room that served as his home. The fire had burned down to embers, and he worked quickly to build it back up, feeding it kindling and then larger pieces of wood until flames roared in the hearth. Then he turned his attention back to Liyana. Her clothing was damp from the snow, which meant it needed to come off before the cold killed her. Owen hesitated, his frontier upbringing warring with necessity, but survival won out. He found his spare nightshirt, long enough to serve as a dress, and worked to remove her deerskin dress with as much modesty as possible. He kept his eyes averted except when necessary, replacing the wet leather with dry cotton. Her skin was like ice beneath his fingers. He piled every blanket he owned on top of her, then heated water and made broth from dried beef and vegetables. When it was ready, he propped her up and coaxed her to drink. She managed several swallows before exhaustion claimed her and she fell into a deep sleep. Owen sat in the chair by the fire and watched her through the night. He had found injured animals before, had nursed calves and foals back to health, but this was different. This was a human life, a woman who had been abandoned by her own people. He wondered what her story was, what had led to such a desperate situation. As dawn light began to filter through the windows, Liyana's eyes opened. They found him immediately, and for a long moment they simply looked at each other. Owen saw awareness return to her gaze, saw her remember where she was and how she had gotten there. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Warm," she said, and there was wonder in her voice as if she had forgotten what warmth felt like. Owen smiled. "That is good. Are you hungry?" She nodded, and he prepared more broth, along with cornbread left over from his own dinner 2 nights prior. She ate slowly, mechanically at first, then with increasing hunger. He let her eat in peace, busying himself with morning tasks, feeding the fire and checking his supplies. When she had finished eating, Liyana set down the bowl and looked at him. "Why did you help me?" The question caught him off guard. "Why would I not?" "Many would not," she said simply. "Many would have ridden past." Owen considered this. She was probably right. Relations between white settlers and Apache were tense at best, violent at worst. But his own mother had taught him that every life had value, and his father had shown him through action that a man's character was measured by how he treated those weaker than himself. "I am not many," he said finally, "and no person deserves to die alone in the snow." Something shifted in her eyes at those words, not quite trust, but perhaps the beginning of it. "My people left me because I was sick," she said quietly. "Fever came. We were running from soldiers. They could not wait for me to recover. Running to where? Nowhere, everywhere, just running." Her voice held infinite weariness. "Always running now, no place left for us." Owen knew this was true. The government wanted all Apache on reservations, and those who resisted were hunted. Bands that had once roamed freely across vast territories were now squeezed into smaller and smaller areas, their traditional ways of life becoming impossible to maintain. "You are welcome to stay here as long as you need," he said, "until you are fully recovered and can decide what you want to do." Liyana looked around the cabin, at the rough furniture Owen had built himself, at the simple but sturdy construction, at the fire burning cheerfully in the hearth. "This is your home." "It is." "You live alone." "I do. My parents passed some years back. I have got a sister in Porterville, about 15 miles east, but otherwise I keep to myself out here." She was quiet for a moment, absorbing this information. Then she said, "I have no home now, no people, nothing." The words were stated as fact without self-pity, but they struck Owen deeply. He thought about what it would mean to lose everything, to be cast adrift in the world with nowhere to belong. His own sense of home and place ran deep, connected to this land he had worked and this house he had built. "Then stay," he heard himself say. "Stay here, at least through the winter. It is too dangerous for you to travel alone right now anyway." Liyana studied his face, searching for something. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her because she gave a small nod. "I will work. I will not be burdened." "You will rest until you are well," Owen corrected. "Then we can talk about work." Over the following days, a routine established itself. Liyana's strength returned gradually, color coming back to her cheeks and steadiness to her hands. She remained in the bed while Owen slept by the fire, though he could tell this arrangement troubled her sense of propriety. She was quiet much of the time, watching him with those dark, thoughtful eyes as he went about his daily tasks. Owen found himself talking to her more than he had talked to anyone in years. The isolation of ranch life had made him comfortable with silence, but Liyana's presence drew words from him. He told her about his parents, how they had come west with dreams of land and opportunity. His father had been a farmer in Pennsylvania, but poor soil and poorer prospects had driven them to seek better fortune. They had found it for a time, before disease took them both in the same bitter winter. Liyana listened to these stories and occasionally offered her own. She spoke of her childhood, of learning the old ways from her grandmother, of seasons spent moving with her band across familiar territories. She spoke of changes, of the soldiers coming, of fights and flights and the slow erosion of everything her people had known. "My mother died giving birth to my brother," she told him one evening as they sat by the fire. "He lived only 3 days. My father was killed by soldiers 2 winters ago. I had only my uncle's family left and some cousins. When the fever came and I could not walk, could not even sit up, they had to make choice." "They should have found another way," Owen said, anger touching his voice. "There was no other way," Liyana replied. "Soldiers were close. Everyone would die to save one sick woman, or one woman dies so everyone else can live. It is simple." "It is not simple at all," Owen argued. "It is terrible." She looked at him with something like surprise. "You think my life worth so much? I think every life is worth that much." They fell silent, the fire crackling between them. Outside, wind howled around the corners of the cabin, but inside it was warm and sheltered. Owen found himself acutely aware of Liyana's presence, of the way firelight played across her face, of the quiet strength he saw in her, despite everything she had endured. When a week had passed since her arrival, Liyana insisted on beginning to help around the cabin. She was still weak, but growing stronger daily, and Owen could see that idleness chafed at her. He relented, allowing her to help with cooking and small tasks. She proved to be efficient and skilled, her movements economical and purposeful. "You are a good cook," she observed one evening as they shared a meal of venison stew. "For man living alone." Owen laughed. "My mother insisted I learn. She said no son of hers would go into the world helpless. She made sure I could cook, clean, sew, and manage a household before she considered my education complete. She was wise woman. She was. I miss her." "I miss my grandmother," Liyana said softly. "She knew everything. All the old stories, all the plant medicines, all the songs. She tried to teach me, but I was young and thought I had much time to learn. Now she is gone and so much knowledge is gone with her." "What do you remember?" Owen asked. Liyana considered this. "Some things. I remember which plants stop bleeding, which ones ease pain. I remember some of the stories about how the world was made, about Coyote and his tricks. I remember the songs women sing when grinding corn." Her expression grew sad. "But so much is lost. Like snow melting in spring, it runs away and cannot be caught." They talked late into that night, sharing memories and stories, finding common ground in their mutual losses. Owen realized that loneliness had been his constant companion for years, without him fully acknowledging it. Liyana's presence, her voice and her company, filled spaces in his life he had not known were empty. As winter deepened, the world outside became a frozen landscape of white and gray. Owen's cattle, hardy range animals, huddled in the sheltered areas he had prepared for them, and he made daily trips to check on them and break ice from their water sources. Liyana often watched from the window, and he could see the restlessness growing in her as her strength returned fully. "I should go," she said one morning. "I am well now. I am burden on you." "You are not a burden," Owen said firmly. "And where would you go?" "To the reservation. I have heard what conditions are like there, Liyana. People starving, disease spreading, promises broken as soon as they are made. Where else is there? She asked, frustration creeping into her voice. I cannot live in white man's world. I am Apache. People see my face and see enemy. They see what they choose to see, Owen replied. Some see enemy, yes, but others see a person. My sister Sarah, she would see you as I do. There are good people in Porterville, and bad people too. Everywhere has both. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I am not asking you to make any decisions right now, but I am asking you to stay at least until spring. The winter is too dangerous to travel and you have nowhere you must be. Stay here. Be safe. When the snow melts, if you still want to leave, I will help you however I can. Liyana looked at him for a long moment. Why do you want me to stay? It was a direct question that deserved an honest answer. Owen found himself struggling with feelings he had not fully examined. Because I like having you here, he said finally. Because this cabin has been just a place where I sleep for 5 years, and now it feels like a home. Because I think you are remarkable and I want to know you better, and because I think you are safer here than anywhere else you could be right now. Color touched her cheeks at his words. You hardly know me. Then let me know you better. Stay. She stayed. As January gave way to February, the relationship between them shifted in subtle ways. They moved around each other with increasing comfort, their conversations growing deeper and more personal. Owen taught Liyana to read English better, for she had learned some from a missionary teacher as a child but had not practiced in years. In return, she taught him words in her language, patient with his clumsy pronunciation. Owen found himself thinking about Liyana constantly, even when he was outside working. He would catch himself smiling at something she had said hours earlier, or hurrying through tasks so he could return to the cabin and her presence. The realization that he was falling in love crept up on him gradually, then hit him all at once during a snowstorm in mid-February. He had been caught out checking on the cattle when the storm rolled in with frightening speed. By the time he made it back to the cabin, he was half frozen and completely exhausted. Liyana had been watching for him, and she pulled him inside with strong hands, already preparing hot water and dry clothes. She peeled off his frozen coat and boots, chafing warmth back into his hands, scolding him in a mixture of English and Apache for taking such risks. The concern in her voice, the care in her touch, the relief in her eyes when he assured her he was fine, all of it combined to make Owen's heart swell with emotion so powerful it took his breath away. He loved her, completely, utterly, without reservation. The knowledge settled into his bones like it had always been there, just waiting for him to notice. But loving her and telling her were two different matters. He had no idea if she felt the same way, or if she saw him merely as a rescuer and temporary host. The last thing he wanted was to make her uncomfortable in the one place she had found safety. So he kept quiet, but he found it increasingly difficult to hide his feelings. He caught himself staring at her while she worked, memorizing the way she moved, the expressions that crossed her face, the sound of her voice. If she noticed his attention, she gave no sign, remaining friendly but somewhat reserved. March brought the first hints of spring. The snow began to melt, revealing the brown earth beneath. The air lost some of its bitter edge, and the cattle grew more active, ready to be done with winter. Owen knew that the changing season meant Liyana might soon choose to leave, and the thought filled him with dread. One evening, as they sat by the fire after supper, Liyana spoke. "The snow is melting." "It is," Owen agreed, his stomach sinking. "Soon traveling will be possible again." "Yes." She was quiet for a moment, staring into the flames. "I have been thinking about what I should do, where I could go." Owen forced himself to ask the question. Have you decided? I have thought about trying to find my uncle's band, but they are probably far away now, maybe even in Mexico, and they made their choice when they left me. I would be burdened to them still. She paused. I thought about reservation, but everything you say about it I know is true. It would be slow death. What else have you thought about? His voice came out rougher than he intended. Liyana turned to look at him directly. I have thought about asking if I could stay here, not just until spring, but truly stay, make this my home if you would allow it. Hope flared in Owen's chest so suddenly it was almost painful. You want to stay, I do. But I do not want to be charity. I do not want to be burden you take care of from pity. She took a breath. These months living here, I have been happier than I thought possible after my people left me. You gave me more than shelter, Owen Lancaster. You gave me respect. You treated me as equal, as person with value. You made me laugh again. You made me want to see tomorrow instead of just surviving today. This place with you, it feels like home. You feel like home. Owen's heart hammered in his chest. Liyana, you have never been a burden. You have been a gift. Every day I wake up grateful that I found you in that snow, that you lived, that you are here. I have been dreading spring because I thought you would leave. I cannot imagine this place without you anymore. You want me to stay. Her voice held uncertainty, as if she could not quite believe what she was hearing. I want you to stay, he confirmed. I want it more than I have wanted anything in my life, but I want you to understand something else too. He paused, gathering his courage. I have fallen in love with you, Liyana. I did not plan it, did not expect it, but it is true nonetheless. If you stay, you should know that. I am not asking anything of you, not requiring anything. Your place here is secure regardless of how you feel about me, but I cannot be anything less than honest with you. The silence that followed felt endless. Liyana stared at him, her eyes wide, and Owen wondered if he had just made a terrible mistake. Then slowly a smile spread across her face, transforming her features with joy. You love me, she asked. I do, completely. She laughed, the sound bright and unexpected. Then I can tell you what I was afraid to say. I love you too, Owen Lancaster. I have loved you since the night you sat by my bed all night to make sure I kept breathing. I have loved you through every kind word, every shared story, every moment of respect and care you have shown me. I thought it was impossible that you could never see me that way. I am Apache woman in white man's world. I am woman with nothing, no family, no possessions, no place. Why would you want me as anything more than charity? Owen moved to kneel before her chair, taking her hands in his. You are wrong about having nothing. You have courage and strength and wisdom. You have survived things that would break most people. You have grace and kindness and a spirit that draws me like fire on a cold night. And as for being Apache, that is part of who you are, and I would not change a single thing about you. You are Liyana Ashkiai, and you are everything I want. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. Then I stay and I make this my home and you my family if you will have me. I will have you, Owen whispered, today and every day after. He kissed her then, tentative at first, giving her room to pull away if she wished, but she did not pull away. Instead, she leaned into the kiss, her hands coming up to frame his face. It was a kiss that tasted of promise and hope, of two lonely souls finding their way to each other against all odds. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. We should probably talk about practical matters, Owen said, though he made no move to release her hands. How we want to manage this, what we want people to know. Liyana nodded. You have sister in Porterville, she should know about me. Sarah will love you, Owen assured her. She has been after me for years to find someone. She always said I was too isolated out here. Will others accept me? Liyana asked, worry creeping into her voice. Will they let me stay? I own this land. Owen said firmly. "What I do on it is my business. But you are right that we will face questions and probably prejudice. Some people in Porterville are good folks who judge based on character. Others will see only that you are Apache and make assumptions. We will have to be prepared for that." "I am used to people looking at me with hate," Liyana said quietly. "But never before did I have someone standing with me. That will make difference." "I will always stand with you," Owen promised. "Whatever comes, we face it together." They talked late into the night, making plans and discussing possibilities. They decided that Owen would ride to Porterville in a few days to speak with his sister Sarah, and to begin carefully spreading word about Liyana's presence. It would be better for people to hear the story from him directly rather than through rumor and speculation. When they finally went to bed that night, they were not yet sharing the sleeping space, but it felt like only a matter of time. The air between them hummed with new possibility, with acknowledged love and promised future. The following days passed in a haze of happiness for Owen. He caught himself whistling while he worked, something he had not done in years. Liyana seemed lighter too, as if acknowledging their feelings had lifted a weight from both their shoulders. They touched more freely now, casual brushes of hands that sent warmth through Owen every time. A week after their declarations, Owen prepared to ride to Porterville. The weather had turned mild enough to make the journey feasible, though mud made the road treacherous in places. Liyana packed food for him and stood at the door as he mounted his horse. "You will tell your sister truth?" she asked. "All of it," Owen confirmed. "Sarah deserves honesty, and she will keep counsel until I am ready to speak to others." "Be safe," Liyana said, and there was worry in her eyes. "I will be back tomorrow night, maybe the morning after if the roads are bad. You will be all right here alone." She gave him a look of amusement. "I survived alone in snow. I can survive alone in cabin for 2 days," Owen laughed. "Fair point. Still, I will miss you. And I will miss you. Now go, before mud gets worse." The ride to Porterville took most of the day, and Owen used the time to organize his thoughts. Sarah lived in town with her husband Marcus, a shopkeeper with a steady nature that balanced Sarah's more vibrant personality. They had 3 children, all under the age of 10, and Sarah had been after Owen for years to visit more often. He arrived at their home as evening was settling over the town. Sarah opened the door herself, her face lighting up with surprise and pleasure. "Owen, we were not expecting you. Come in, come in. Marcus, look who is here." The house was warm and noisy with the sound of children playing. Marcus emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel, and greeted Owen with a firm handshake. "Good to see you, Owen. Is everything all right at the ranch?" "Everything is fine," Owen assured him. "Better than fine, actually, but I need to speak with you both about something important." Sarah's expression shifted to concern. "That sounds serious. Children, go play upstairs for a bit. Adults need to talk." Once the children had thundered up the stairs with the particular loudness only young ones could achieve, Sarah led Owen and Marcus to the sitting room. She poured coffee for all of them and settled into her chair with the air of someone preparing for significant news. "You have my full attention, brother. What is this about?" Owen took a breath and began. He told them everything, from finding Liyana in the snow to the months she had spent recovering at his ranch to the love that had grown between them. He left out nothing, wanting them to understand the full situation. Sarah listened without interruption, her expression shifting through various emotions. When Owen finished, there was a long silence. Then she said, "You love her." It was not a question, but Owen answered anyway. "I do, more than I thought possible. And she loves you, she says she does." "I believe her." Sarah looked at her husband, some communication passing between them that Owen could not quite read. Then she turned back to him. I am happy for you, Owen, truly. It has been too long since you had someone in your life, but you must know the challenges you will face. I know, Owen said. Some people will not accept her, some will see her as enemy based on her blood alone. But Sarah, she is remarkable. If people would give her a chance, they would see what I see. I would like to meet her, Sarah said. Soon, will you bring her to town? Eventually, yes. But I want to prepare the ground first. I wanted you to know the truth before rumors started spreading, and I wanted your advice on how to handle this. Marcus spoke up for the first time. You will face opposition from some quarters. The territorial government has been pushing hard on Indian policy, and tensions are high. There are people in this town who have lost family to Apache raids, and they will not be inclined toward understanding. I know, Owen said, but there are also people who believe in fairness and justice. People like you too. We will support you however we can, Sarah said firmly. And I suspect others will too once they meet Liyana and see that she is just a woman trying to survive, not a threat. But you should be prepared for ugliness too. They talked for hours, planning and strategizing. Sarah suggested introducing Liyana gradually, perhaps starting with the pastor of the local church and a few other influential community members who were known for their fair-mindedness. Marcus offered insights into which merchants might refuse to serve her and which ones would treat her with basic human decency. By the time Owen went to bed in Sarah's spare room, he had a clearer picture of the challenges ahead. But he also felt reinforced by his sister's support. Sarah could be a fierce ally when she chose to be, and having her on his side would make a significant difference. He stayed another day in Porterville, meeting quietly with Pastor Reynolds, who ran the small Methodist church. The pastor was an older man with kind eyes and a reputation for judging people by their character rather than their origins. Mr. Lancaster, the pastor said after hearing Owen's story, I believe every soul is equal before God, whether that soul is housed in white skin, brown skin, or any other kind. If this young woman wishes to make a life here and if she comes in peace, then she should be given that chance. You have my support. This endorsement bolstered Owen's confidence. He spent the afternoon walking through town, gauging the atmosphere and making small talk with various people. He did not mention Liyana directly yet, but he listened carefully to how people spoke about Apache in general, mentally cataloging who might be receptive and who would be hostile. As the sun set on his second day away, Owen began the journey home. The temperature had dropped again, reminding him that winter was not quite finished with the land yet, but his heart was warm with the knowledge that he would see Liyana soon. He arrived back at the ranch well after dark. Light glowed from the cabin windows, and as he approached, the door opened. Liyana stood silhouetted against the firelight, and the sight of her waiting for him made Owen's breath catch. You came back, she said as he dismounted. Did you doubt I would? No, but still it is good to see you. Inside, she had kept the fire going and had stew ready to warm. While Owen ate, he told her everything about his visit to Porterville, about Sarah's support and the pastor's welcome, about the challenges they would likely face, and the allies they might be able to count on. Liyana listened carefully, asking occasional questions. When he finished, she said, Your sister, she truly wants to meet me, she does. And she meant it, Liyana. Sarah is direct. If she did not want to meet you, she would have said nothing. Then I will meet her. I am nervous, but I will do it. There is no rush, Owen said. We can take our time with this. Let spring truly arrive. Let me prepare things more, and then we will bring you to town. But fate had other plans. 3 days later, Owen was working on repairing a fence line when he saw riders approaching. 3 men on horseback, moving with purpose across his land. He recognized one of them as Tom Waters, a rancher whose spread bordered his own to the north. The other two were strangers. Owen set down his tools and walked to meet them, wariness prickling the back of his neck. Tom was not exactly a friend, but they had been cordial neighbors in the past. The expression on Tom's face now was not cordial. "Lancaster," Tom said by way of greeting, "we need to talk." "About what?" "About the Apache woman you have got living in your cabin." Tom's voice was hard. "Word has gotten around. People are concerned." Owen kept his own voice level. "Her name is Liyana, and she is not a threat to anyone. I found her near death in the snow months ago. I gave her shelter. That is all." One of the other men, a lean fellow with a mean cast to his face, spoke up. "That is not all from what we hear. We hear you are keeping her as some kind of wife." "What I do on my own property is my business," Owen said, feeling anger kindle in his chest. "Liyana is under my protection. She has committed no crime and threatens no one." "She is Apache," the third man said. "That is enough. There are folks in Porterville who lost family to Apache raids. How do you think they feel knowing one of the enemy is living here comfortable while they are still mourning their dead?" "Liyana had nothing to do with any raids," Owen said, working to keep his temper in check. "She was abandoned by her own people. She is alone in the world. If we cannot show mercy to someone in that situation, then what does that say about us?" Tom shook his head. "It says we remember who our people are. Look, Lancaster, I have got nothing personal against you, but this will not stand. The territory is trying to deal with the Indian problem, and you are harboring one right here. Best thing you can do is send her to the reservation where she belongs." "I will do no such thing," Owen said flatly. "And this conversation is over. You are on my land without invitation. I would appreciate it if you left." The mean-faced man leaned forward in his saddle. "You are making a mistake, Lancaster. People are angry. Things could get difficult for you." "Is that a threat?" "It is a warning, from one white man to another. Do not throw your lot in with savages. It will not end well." Owen took a step forward, his hands clenching into fists. "Get off my property, now, before I forget that I am supposed to be civilized." The three men exchanged glances, then Tom shrugged. "We said our piece. What you do with it is on your head. But do not say we did not warn you." They turned their horses and rode away. Owen watched them go, his heart pounding with anger and fear. Not fear for himself, but fear for Liyana. He had known there would be opposition, but he had not expected it to manifest so quickly or so aggressively. He found Liyana in the cabin, and one look at her face told him she had seen the riders. "What did they want?" she asked. "To tell me I should send you away." Owen moved to her, taking her hands. "I told them no. I told them you are under my protection." Worry filled her eyes. "They will make trouble for you. Let them try." "Owen, I do not want to cause you problems. Maybe I should leave, find another way." "No," he said fiercely. "Do not even think that. Those men do not get to dictate how I live or who I care about. We knew there would be opposition. This is just the beginning of it. But we also have allies, remember? Sarah, the pastor, and others once people get to know you. We will weather this." But over the following weeks, Owen began to realize the situation was more serious than he had anticipated. He made a trip to town for supplies and found several merchants suddenly reluctant to do business with him. Rumor had spread that he was housing an Apache woman, and some townspeople viewed this as a betrayal of his own people. At the general store, the owner, a man named Frank Davies, pulled him aside. "Owen, I have known you for years. You are a good man. But this thing you are doing, keeping that Apache girl, it is causing problems. People are talking. Some are getting angry. You need to think about your position here." "My position is that I will not abandon someone under my protection," Owen said. "And I will not apologize for showing basic human decency." Frank sighed. I respect that. I do. But you are putting yourself outside the community with this stance. Is she really worth that? Yes, Owen said without hesitation. She is. He bought what supplies he could from those willing to sell to him and returned to the ranch. Liyana could see the tension in him, and that evening she brought up what he had been dreading. I am causing you too much trouble, she said. This is not sustainable, Owen. You are being pushed out of your own community because of me. I do not care, he said, though the words were not entirely true. He did care, but he cared more about her. I care, she replied. I will not let you sacrifice everything for me. There must be another way. They argued about it into the night, Liyana insisting she should leave and Owen absolutely refusing to let her go. Finally, exhausted, they reached a compromise. They would make one more attempt to win over the community by having Liyana meet with Pastor Reynolds and some of the more fair-minded citizens. If that failed to shift opinion, they would consider other options. A few days later, Sarah arrived at the ranch in a wagon driven by Marcus. Owen had not expected them, and his surprise must have shown on his face because Sarah laughed as she climbed down. Did you think I would wait forever to meet her? Sarah said. If the town will not come to Liyana, then I will come to Liyana. Introductions were made with some awkwardness, but Sarah's warm nature quickly put Liyana at ease. The two women studied each other with mutual curiosity while Marcus and Owen unloaded supplies Sarah had brought. So you are the woman who has captured my brother's heart, Sarah said, and caused such an uproar in Porterville. I did not mean to cause trouble, Liyana said quietly. Oh, I know that, and anyone with sense knows it too. Unfortunately, sense is not as common as one might hope. Sarah smiled. But I am not here to discuss Porterville's shortcomings. I am here to meet you and to form my own opinion. So tell me, Liyana, what are your intentions toward my brother? The direct question made Liyana blink, then smile. I love him. I want to build life with him if we can find a way to make that possible. Good. That is what I hope to hear. Sarah glanced at Owen. He needs someone. He has been alone too long, too isolated out here. You are good for him. I can see it already. They spent the afternoon together, the four of them, and Owen watched as Sarah and Liyana gradually relaxed around each other. His sister asked questions about Liyana's background and her life before Owen found her, listening with genuine interest. In return, she shared stories about Owen's childhood, embarrassing tales that made Liyana laugh and Owen groan. Before they left, Sarah pulled Owen aside. I like her. Very much. She is strong and intelligent, and she clearly loves you. But Owen, you need to know that the situation in town is getting worse, not better. There is talk of forming a committee to pressure you to give her up. Some of the more head-headed men are even talking about taking action themselves. Fear, sharp and cold, lanced through Owen. What kind of action? I do not know exactly. Marcus has been trying to calm things down, and Pastor Reynolds has spoken from the pulpit about Christian charity and acceptance. But there is a faction that will not listen to reason. You need to be careful. Both of you. After Sarah and Marcus left, Owen told Liyana what his sister had said. He saw fear flicker across her face before she shuddered it away. Then I will leave, she said. Tonight, they will have no reason to bother you if I am gone. No, Owen said. Running does not solve this. And I will not let you go off into the wilderness alone. We need another solution. What solution is there? Your people hate me for being Apache. My people abandoned me. Where can I exist in peace? Owen took her face in his hands. Here, with me. We just need to make them understand that you are not a threat. Let me bring Pastor Reynolds out here to meet you. Let him see what I see. His word carries weight in Porterville. If he speaks for you, others will listen. Liyana was reluctant, but she finally agreed. Owen rode to Porterville the next morning and found the pastor at the church. He explained the situation and asked if Reynolds would be willing to come meet Liyana himself. The pastor agreed without hesitation. "I will come tomorrow afternoon if that suits you, and I will bring my wife. Rachel has a gift for seeing people's hearts. Her opinion will help me form my own." True to his word, Pastor Reynolds and his wife Rachel arrived at Owen's ranch the following day. Rachel was a plump woman with gray hair and shrewd, kind eyes. She embraced Liyana like an old friend, immediately putting the younger woman at ease. Over tea and the bread Liyana had baked that morning, they talked. The pastor asked questions about Liyana's beliefs, her values, her hopes for the future. Liyana answered honestly, her English occasionally halting but her sincerity clear. She spoke of wanting to live in peace, of contributing to a community, of building a life with meaning. Rachel mostly listened, but Owen saw her nodding occasionally, saw approval in her expression. When the conversation wound down, the pastor sat back in his chair. "Miss Ashkei," he said, using Liyana's last name respectfully, "I see before me a woman of character and courage. You have survived what would break most people, and you have maintained your dignity and your humanity throughout. Any community would be fortunate to count you among its members." Liyana's eyes widened. "You would accept me, even knowing I am Apache. I accept you as a child of God, which is what you are, same as any other person. The circumstances of your birth and your blood do not change that fundamental truth." Tears welled in Liyana's eyes. "Thank you. However," the pastor continued, his expression growing serious, "I must be honest with you both. My acceptance and Rachel's and even a handful of others in Porterville will not be enough to sway everyone. There are people whose hatred runs too deep, whose losses are too fresh, for them to see past your Apache heritage. You will face opposition and possibly danger." "We know," Owen said. "But we will face it together." The pastor nodded. "Then you have my support and I will do what I can to shift opinion in town, but I would also advise caution. Keep to your ranch for now. Give people time to grow accustomed to the idea of Liyana's presence before you bring her into Porterville itself." After the pastor and his wife left, Liyana turned to Owen. "They were kind, more kind than I expected. There are good people in the world," Owen said. "We just need to find them and hold tight to them." Spring advanced toward summer. The grass grew tall and green, and Owen's cattle thrived on the rich grazing. The ranch work kept him busy from dawn to dusk, and Liyana worked beside him when she could, learning the rhythms of ranch life. She proved to be a quick study with the animals, and several times her knowledge of traditional plants and medicines came in handy for treating minor ailments in the livestock. Despite Pastor Reynolds' advocacy and Sarah's staunch support, the situation in Porterville did not improve significantly. Owen still faced hostility when he went to town, and there were merchants who flatly refused to do business with him. But there were also small victories. The town doctor, an elderly man named Harrison, made the trip out to the ranch specifically to meet Liyana and offer his services should she ever need medical attention. "Any patient of Owen Lancaster is a patient of mine," Dr. Harrison said firmly. "And I will not be swayed by prejudice in the practice of medicine." These small kindnesses sustained them, but the weight of being isolated from community was taking its toll on both of them. Owen tried to hide his frustration, but Liyana could see it. She was quieter than usual, and he knew she blamed herself for his troubles. One evening in June, Owen made a decision. He had been turning an idea over in his mind for weeks, and the time had come to speak of it. "Liyana," he said as they sat watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, "I want to marry you." She turned to him, surprise clear on her face. "Mary, yes, I want you to be my wife properly and legally. I want everyone to know that you are not just someone I am sheltering, but the woman I have chosen to spend my life with. I think it might change how people see the situation. Right now, some view you as an obligation I have taken on, but if you are my wife, they would have to see you differently." Liyana was quiet for a long moment. "You think marriage will make people accept me? I think it will make our position stronger. And more than that, I want it for us. I want to call you my wife. I want to build this life with you officially, not just in our hearts, but in the eyes of the world. Even if people never accept me, even if you are always outsider because of me, even then," Owen said firmly. "Liyana, you are my home now just as I am yours. Nothing else matters to me as much as that." She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "Then yes, I will marry you, Owen Lancaster. I will be your wife and you will be my husband, and we will face whatever comes together." They kissed as the sun sank below the horizon, sealing their promise to each other. The next day, Owen rode to Porterville to speak with Pastor Reynolds about performing a wedding ceremony. The pastor agreed immediately, though he warned that there might be opposition. "Some people will view this as you making a permanent commitment to harbor an Apache woman," Reynolds said. "They will not like it, but others may see it as evidence of your serious intentions and respect your choice. Either way, I will perform the ceremony gladly." "When would you like it done?" "As soon as possible," Owen said. "We have waited long enough." They set a date 2 weeks away, giving Sarah time to prepare and for word to spread through the community. Owen wanted the wedding to be public, to make a statement that he was not ashamed of his choice and that Liyana deserved respect as his wife. The 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah came to the ranch to help Liyana make a proper wedding dress from fabric Marcus had acquired. It was simple but beautiful, white cotton with Apache-style beadwork that Liyana added herself, creating a garment that honored both cultures. Owen cleaned and repaired everything on the ranch, wanting it to look its best. He built new furniture for the cabin, including a proper bed frame to replace the old one. He wanted to give Liyana a home to be proud of, even if it was modest. The day before the wedding, Sarah arrived with her family to stay overnight. The cabin was crowded but joyful, filled with the laughter of children and the warmth of family. Liyana seemed overwhelmed by it all at times, but in the best way. She had not had family in so long, and Sarah's easy acceptance meant everything. "You are my sister now," Sarah told Liyana that evening as they worked together preparing the wedding feast. "That means you have me in your corner always. If anyone gives you trouble, they give me trouble too. And trust me, I can be very troublesome when I want to be." Liyana laughed, the sound bright and free. "I believe you and thank you for welcoming me, for accepting me. It means more than you know." "Owen is happy," Sarah said simply. "I have not seen him this happy since before our parents died. You did that. You brought him back to life." "How could I not welcome you?" The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. They would hold the ceremony at the ranch, with just family and a few close friends in attendance. Owen had invited several neighboring ranchers who had remained cordial despite the controversy, hoping to build bridges. Some had declined, but a few had accepted, which felt like a victory. Pastor Reynolds arrived mid-morning, and Sarah helped Liyana dress while Owen waited outside with Marcus. He was more nervous than he had expected, his heart racing as the moment approached. This was not just a wedding but a declaration, a line drawn in the sand. After today, there would be no going back. His life would be irrevocably tied to Liyana's, and he found he could not wait. When Liyana emerged from the cabin, Owen's breath caught. She was beautiful, the simple dress perfect on her, her hair falling loose over her shoulders. But more than her physical appearance, it was the expression on her face that struck him. She looked radiant, hopeful, and yes, a little nervous too. They stood before Pastor Reynolds under the open sky, with the mountains as their witness and the sun shining down. The ceremony was simple but profound. They spoke the traditional vows, promising to love and cherish, to honor and protect, through whatever might come. When Pastor Reynolds pronounced them husband and wife, Owen kissed Liyana with all the love and promise he felt in his heart. She kissed him back, her hands gripping his shoulders as if anchoring herself to this moment, to this new reality they had created together. Applause broke out from their small gathering of witnesses. Dr. Harrison was there, beaming with approval. A rancher named Joseph Greer, who had known Owen's father, clapped him on the back with congratulations. Even Tom Waters had shown up, looking uncomfortable but extending a grudging handshake. "May you have happiness, Lancaster," Tom said. "I do not understand your choice, but I can see you have made it with full commitment. That counts for something." The celebration afterward was joyful. Sarah had prepared an impressive feast, and there was music and dancing. Liyana participated with initial shyness that gradually melted away as the afternoon wore on. Owen watched her laugh at something Sarah said, watched her dance with his nieces, and felt his heart swell with love and gratitude. As evening fell and their guests prepared to depart, Owen stood with his arm around his new wife and thought that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. They were married now, bound by law and by love. Liyana was no longer a woman alone in the world. She was Liyana Lancaster, and she had a home. The months following the wedding brought a gradual shift in attitudes in Porterville. It was not a dramatic change, but a slow thaw. The fact that Owen had married Liyana, making a public and permanent commitment, seemed to force people to reconsider their positions. She was no longer just an Apache woman squatting on a white man's ranch. She was a settler's wife, part of the community whether they liked it or not. Sarah proved to be a fierce advocate, bringing Liyana into social situations whenever possible and defending her against any slight, real or perceived. The pastor and his wife did the same, treating Liyana with consistent respect and kindness that influenced others. Still, there were those who would never accept her. Owen and Liyana learned to navigate the town carefully, knowing which shops would serve them and which would not, which neighbors would be friendly and which would turn their backs. It was not the life Owen would have chosen, this constant awareness of prejudice and hostility, but they managed it together. As autumn arrived, bringing cooler weather and golden aspens to the mountains, Liyana discovered she was pregnant. The knowledge filled her with equal parts joy and fear. She shared the news with Owen one evening, watching his face carefully for his reaction. His whoop of happiness and the way he swept her into his arms, spinning her around the cabin, erased all her doubts. "A baby," he kept saying, wonder in his voice. "We are going to have a baby. You are happy?" Liyana asked, needing to hear it. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Owen said, his hands gentle as they came to rest on her still flat belly. "You have given me so much, Liyana, a home, a purpose, love, and now a child. I am the most fortunate man alive." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Dr. Harrison checked on Liyana regularly, his professional manner never wavering despite occasional grumbling from some in town about treating an Apache woman. Sarah was over the moon about becoming an aunt again and showered Liyana with advice, baby clothes, and support. Liyana bloomed during pregnancy, her body growing round with their child. Owen found himself constantly amazed by the miracle of it, by the fact that they had created a new life together. He built a cradle from oak wood, spending hours sanding and polishing it until it was smooth as silk. He wanted everything perfect for their baby. Winter arrived again, marking nearly a year since Owen had found Liyana in the snow. They spoke of that sometimes, marveling at how much had changed in 12 months. From near death and abandonment to marriage and impending parenthood, the transformation was remarkable. "Sometimes I still cannot believe this is real," Liyana admitted one evening as they sat by the fire, Owen's hand resting on her swollen belly. "That I have you, have this home, have our baby coming. Last year at this time I was dying in the snow thinking my life was over. Now I have more than I ever dreamed possible." "You deserve all of it," Owen said. "Every bit of happiness, every moment of peace. I wish I could give you more. I wish I could give you a town that fully accepts you, neighbors who welcome you without reservation." "You give me what matters most," Liyana said. "Love, safety, family. The rest we will work on. Already things are better than they were. Pastor Reynolds told me just last week that opinion is shifting. More people are willing to give me chance now." This was true. The fact that Liyana was pregnant seemed to humanize her in the eyes of some who had been hostile before. Motherhood was something women could relate to across racial lines, and there were tentative overtures of friendship from a few of the town women. It was not universal acceptance, but it was progress. In February, as snow fell soft outside the cabin windows, Liyana went into labor. Owen rode through the storm to fetch Dr. Harrison, his heart in his throat. The doctor came immediately, bringing his bag and his calm competence. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. Owen paced and worried, feeling helpless as he listened to Liyana's cries from behind the door where Dr. Harrison had banished him. Sarah had come as well, helping the doctor and occasionally emerging to give Owen updates and tell him not to worry, though her own face was tight with concern. Finally, as dawn broke on the second day, a baby's cry pierced the air. Owen stopped his pacing, frozen, hardly daring to breathe. The door opened and Sarah emerged, her face exhausted but wreathed in smiles. "You have a son," she said. "A healthy, strong son, and Liyana is tired but well. Come meet your child." Owen entered the room on shaking legs. Liyana lay in the bed, pale and exhausted but smiling. In her arms was a tiny bundle. Dr. Harrison stood to the side, washing his hands, and gave Owen an approving nod. "Fine boy you have got there, Lancaster. Good lungs on him too." Owen moved to the bedside and looked down at his son. The baby had stopped crying and was making small snuffling sounds, his tiny face scrunched up. He had a shock of dark hair and skin that was a beautiful blend of both his parents. "He is perfect," Owen whispered. "Absolutely perfect." "Want to hold him?" Liyana asked, and there was such love in her eyes, such joy, that Owen felt his throat tighten with emotion. She placed the baby in his arms, and Owen cradled his son for the first time. The weight of him, the warmth, the realness of this tiny person they had created together, it all overwhelmed him. Tears slipped down his cheeks unchecked. "Hello, little one," he murmured. "Welcome to the world. I am your father, and I promise to love you and protect you every single day of your life." They named him Nathan, after Owen's father. Nathan Oliver Lancaster, a name that connected him to both his heritage and his future. The baby proved to be healthy and hungry, nursing vigorously and growing visibly day by day. The arrival of Nathan marked another shift in how Porterville viewed Liyana. A baby could not be denied his humanity, and Nathan was Owen's son as much as Liyana's child. Those who had harbored reservations found them harder to maintain when confronted with an innocent infant. Slowly, grudgingly, acceptance grew. Sarah was a doting aunt, visiting often and bringing gifts for Nathan. Her own children adored their new cousin, and Owen and Liyana's cabin became a place where the two families gathered regularly. Other neighbors began to stop by as well, first to meet the baby, then simply to visit. Friendships formed, tentative but real. By the time Nathan was 6 months old, crawling around the cabin and getting into everything, Liyana had established a place in the community that, while not universally embraced, was at least recognized. She helped Sarah with various projects in town, contributed to church functions, and gradually built relationships with other women. There were still difficult moments. Once, in the general store, a man made a crude comment about Apache savages. Owen's temper flared, but before he could respond, Joseph Greer, the old rancher, stepped in. "That is Owen Lancaster's wife you are speaking about," Joseph said coldly. "And if you have got a problem with her, you have got a problem with me too, Mrs. Lancaster has proven herself to be a woman of character and a good neighbor. I suggest you keep your ignorant opinions to yourself." The man had slunk away, and Joseph had tipped his hat to Liyana. "Pay him no mind, Mrs. Lancaster. Some folks are just determined to be fools." Moments like that reminded Owen and Liyana that they had allies, people who saw beyond blood and history to the person beneath. It made the occasional hostility more bearable. As Nathan grew, so did the ranch. Owen expanded his cattle operation and built new structures. Liyana started a garden that became the envy of the neighborhood, using her knowledge of plants to grow vegetables and herbs that thrived in the high desert climate. They sold surplus produce in town, and Liyana's garden became another way she contributed to the community. Years passed in this fashion, marked by the seasons and the rhythms of ranch life. Nathan grew into a bright, energetic boy with his father's height and his mother's dark eyes. He learned to ride almost as soon as he could walk and followed Owen around the ranch like a shadow, eager to help with every task. When Nathan was 3, Liyana became pregnant again. This time the news brought only joy, no fear. They knew what to expect, and they had a support system in place. The pregnancy was easier than the first, and when Liyana went into labor in the spring of 1883, Dr. Harrison delivered a healthy baby girl they named Emma Rose. Emma was different from Nathan from the start, quieter and more observant, but with a stubborn streak that made both her parents laugh. "She knows what she wants," Owen said proudly, "just like her mother." The Lancaster family grew and thrived. Porterville continued to expand as more settlers arrived in New Mexico territory, and the old tensions between white settlers and Apache seemed to fade, replaced by new concerns and challenges. Liyana was increasingly accepted as simply one of the town's residents, her Apache heritage less important than her role as Owen's wife, and a mother of 2. When Nathan was 7 and Emma 4, Owen and Liyana took a rare trip to visit the reservation where some Apache had been settled. Liyana had spoken occasionally about wanting to know what had happened to her uncle's band, whether any of them had survived. With Pastor Reynolds' help, Owen made inquiries and learned that some of the people from Liyana's band were indeed on the reservation. The visit was bittersweet. Liyana found her cousin, a woman named Tayan, who was surviving but not thriving on the reservation. The conditions were poor, food scarce, and hope even scarcer. Tayan embraced Liyana with tears, apologizing over and over for the decision to leave her behind. "We thought you would die anyway," Tayan said, "and if we stayed, soldiers would kill us all. It was an impossible choice." "I understand," Liyana said, and she did. Seeing the desperation her people lived with now, she could not judge the decision that had been made. "And I survived. I am well. Look, these are my children." She introduced Nathan and Emma, and Owen saw how Tayan's face softened looking at the children. Here was proof that Liyana had not just survived but thrived, that some good had come from that terrible day in the snow. They brought supplies to the reservation, food and blankets and medicine, and promised to return. On the ride home, Liyana was quiet, processing everything she had seen. Finally, she spoke. "I am grateful," she said, "that you found me, that I did not end up there in that place of hopelessness. I have good life, Owen, better than I ever dreamed, but I feel guilty too. Why did I get to be happy when so many of my people suffer?" Owen reached over and took her hand. "You cannot change what happened to them, but we can help where we can. We will go back to the reservation regularly, bring supplies, do what is in our power. And Liyana, you being happy is not a betrayal of your people. You honor them by living well, by raising our children to understand both sides of their heritage, by being strong. Do not feel guilty for the life we have built." They did return to the reservation several times over the following years, each visit bringing supplies and a connection to Liyana's past. Nathan and Emma grew up knowing their mother's people, understanding their Apache heritage as well as their father's settler background. Owen and Liyana made sure their children knew both languages, both sets of stories and traditions. In Porterville, the Lancaster family became an established part of the community. Owen served on the town council for a time, and Liyana was active in the church and various civic organizations. The hostility that had greeted her arrival faded into history, replaced by respect and genuine affection from most quarters. When Nathan was 15 and Emma 12, Owen and Liyana welcomed a final addition to their family, a son they named Thomas Jacob. His arrival, unexpected but joyous, felt like a gift. Nathan doted on his baby brother, and Emma appointed herself his primary caretaker, much to Liyana's amusement. "She is just like you," Owen told Liyana, watching Emma carefully tend to baby Thomas. "Fierce and protective and full of love." "She is better than me," Liyana replied. "She has never known what it is to be abandoned, to be alone. Because of you, our children have security I never had. They know they are loved and wanted. That is everything." As Thomas grew, the century turned. The year 1900 arrived, bringing with it a sense of new possibilities and changes. The Wild West that Owen and Liyana had known in their youth was fading, replaced by increasing civilization and order. New Mexico was moving toward statehood, and the old conflicts between settlers and native peoples had largely been supplanted by new concerns. Nathan, now a young man of 22, had taken over much of the ranch work, allowing Owen to slow down some. Emma, 19 and sharp as a tack, was training to be a teacher, wanting to work at the reservation school to help Apache children learn to navigate the changing world. Thomas, a lively 7-year-old, kept everyone entertained with his energy and constant questions. Owen and Liyana, now in their 40s, found themselves entering a new phase of life. They sat on the porch more often, watching their children and marveling at how far they had come. 22 years since that day in the snow when Owen had found Liyana and saved her life. 22 years of building a life together against considerable odds. "You ever regret it?" Liyana asked him one evening as they watched the sun set, just as they had on countless other evenings. "Taking me in that day, all the trouble it caused you." Owen pulled her closer, his arm around her shoulders. "Never, not for a single moment. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Liyana Lancaster. You and our children, this life we built. I would make the same choice 1,000 times over." "I was so lost that day," she said softly. "Dying in the snow, thinking my life meant nothing, that I would just disappear and be forgotten. And then you found me. You gave me not just life, but a reason to live. You became my home, Owen, my whole world. And you became mine," he replied. "My home, my heart, everything that matters." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened and stars began to appear. Inside the house, they could hear the sounds of their family: Nathan discussing something with Thomas, Emma practicing the piano Sarah had given her. These were the sounds of home, of love, of a life well lived. In the end, Owen reflected, the story was simple. He had found a woman abandoned in the snow, and she had said, "My people left me." Those words had broken his heart and changed his life. He had become her home, yes, but she had become his as well. Together they had built something beautiful and lasting, a family and a life that honored both their heritages and transcended the prejudices of their time. The ranch would continue for generations, passed down to their children and their children's children. The story of how Owen found Liyana would be told and retold, becoming part of family legend. And always, at its heart, would be the simple truth that love can overcome anything, that home is not a place but a person, and that sometimes salvation comes in the form of one human being refusing to ride past another in need. As full dark settled over the New Mexico landscape, Owen and Liyana rose from the porch and went inside to their family, to the home they had built together, to the life they had fought for and won. Behind them, the stars wheeled overhead, eternal and unchanging, bearing witness to a love story that had begun in desperation and cold but had bloomed into warmth and joy that would last all their days. Years continued to unfold with the steady reliability of seasons turning. Nathan married a woman named Catherine from Porterville, a schoolteacher's daughter with a quick smile and good sense. They built their own home on a portion of the ranch land Owen deeded to them, close enough to help with the family operation but far enough to establish their own independence. Within 2 years, they gave Owen and Liyana their first grandchild, a girl named Sarah after Owen's sister. The arrival of baby Sarah brought immense joy to the family. Liyana proved to be a devoted grandmother, often taking care of the infant while Catherine helped with ranch work or pursued her own teaching. Owen would sometimes find Liyana sitting with the baby, singing old Apache lullabies his wife had learned from her own grandmother, passing down traditions across generations and cultures. Emma pursued her dream of teaching at the reservation school with characteristic determination. It was challenging work, both emotionally and practically. The reservation system remained imperfect and often unjust, but Emma threw herself into making a difference in individual lives. She taught children to read and write in English while also encouraging them to maintain their Apache language and customs. Liyana was immensely proud of her daughter, seeing in Emma's work a bridge between worlds. When Emma was 23, she met a young doctor named William Preston who had come to provide medical care at the reservation. He was a quiet man with deep convictions about justice and service. Owen liked him immediately, recognizing in William some of the same qualities that had driven him to help Liyana all those years ago. Emma and William's courtship was swift but sure, and they married in a ceremony that blended traditions from multiple heritages, just as the Lancaster family itself did. Thomas, meanwhile, grew into a thoughtful young man with a gift for working with horses. He could gentle the wildest Mustang, and ranchers from throughout the territory sought his help with difficult animals. He had inherited his mother's patience and his father's steady determination, a powerful combination that served him well. Sarah Lancaster, Owen's sister, remained a constant presence in their lives until her death in 1905. She passed peacefully in her sleep at age 61, surrounded by family. At her funeral, half the town of Porterville turned out, testament to how beloved she had been. Owen grieved deeply for his sister. But he was grateful for all the years they had shared, and for her unwavering support during the difficult early days of his relationship with Liyana. "She was first person besides you to treat me like I mattered," Liyana said at the reception after Sarah's funeral. "First person to look past what I was and see who I was. I will never forget that kindness." The grandchildren continued to arrive as the years passed. Nathan and Catherine had 4 children eventually. Emma and William had 3. Each new baby was celebrated, each child cherished. The Lancaster family grew into a small clan, bound together by love and shared history. Owen found deep satisfaction in watching his children raise their own families. He saw how Nathan ran the ranch with skill and innovation, implementing new techniques while respecting the traditional methods Owen had taught him. He saw how Emma made a real difference in the lives of her students, how William's medical practice helped countless people regardless of their ability to pay. He saw Thomas's reputation as a horseman grow, bringing respect and income to the family. And always, through everything, there was Liyana, his partner, his love, his home. They moved through life together with the ease of 2 people who had long since learned each other's rhythms. They could communicate with glances across a room, could work together without needing words, could sit in companionable silence and feel perfectly content. As they grew older, their hair graying and their steps slowing, Owen and Liyana spent more time in reflection. They would sit on the porch they had sat on for decades and talk about their life, about the choices they had made and the roads they had traveled. "Do you think about what would have happened if I had died that day?" Liyana asked once. "If you had come along an hour later or not at all, I try not to," Owen admitted. "The thought of a world where I never knew you, where our children and grandchildren were never born, it is too terrible to contemplate." "I think about it sometimes," she said. "I think about how close I came to just ceasing to exist, being one more forgotten person lost to history. And then you appeared, like something from the old stories my grandmother told, where help comes from unexpected places at the darkest moment." "I am no hero from a story," Owen protested. "I just did what anyone should do when they find someone in need." "But most people would not have done it," Liyana countered. "That is what makes you special, Owen. That is what saved my life and gave me everything I have now." In 1910, the Lancaster family celebrated Nathan's 40th birthday with a large gathering at the ranch. All the children and grandchildren attended, along with friends from Porterville and even some of Liyana's relatives from the reservation. It was a joyous occasion, filled with food and music and laughter. At one point in the evening, Owen found himself standing with his sons and sons-in-law, watching the younger generation play. Nathan stood beside him, his own son perched on his shoulders. William was there with Emma, their youngest daughter clutching his hand. Thomas, though not yet married, had brought a young woman named Alice whom he was clearly sweet on. "You built something good here, Pa," Nathan said quietly. "A good family, a good life. You gave us all something to be proud of." "Your mother and I built it together," Owen corrected. "Everything good in my life came from the day I found her. Everything." He looked across the yard to where Liyana sat with a cluster of grandchildren around her, telling them some story that had them all rapt with attention. Even after more than 30 years together, the sight of her still made his heart lift. She looked up at that moment, caught his eye, and smiled. A private smile just for him that carried all the love and shared history between them. The years of Owen and Liyana's old age were gentle ones. They had worked hard all their lives and were content now to let the younger generation carry most of the burden. They helped where they could, of course, Owen still lending his expertise to ranch matters and Liyana still tending her beloved garden. but mostly they enjoyed the fruits of their labor. The family they had raised, the community they had built, the love that had sustained them through everything. Porterville had changed dramatically from the rough frontier town it had been when Liyana first arrived. It had grown into a proper small city, with paved streets and electric lights, schools and churches and businesses of all kinds. The old tensions between settlers and Apache were largely forgotten, replaced by new concerns and challenges of a new century. But some things remained constant. The ranch still stood, passed now primarily to Nathan but still home to Owen and Liyana. The mountains still rose in the distance, eternal and unchanging. And the love between Owen and Liyana still burned bright, tempered by time but not diminished. On a spring morning in 1918, Owen woke to find sunlight streaming through the bedroom window and Liyana still asleep beside him. He lay quietly, not wanting to wake her, and thought about their life together. 40 years had passed since that day in the snow. 40 years of marriage, of partnership, of building something lasting. They were both old now, Owen 71 and Liyana 68. Their children were middle-aged, their grandchildren mostly grown, and even a few great-grandchildren had begun to arrive. The world had changed beyond recognition from the one they had known in their youth. The frontier was gone, replaced by farms and towns and all the trappings of civilization, but the essentials remained: love, family, home. These were the things that mattered, the things that lasted when everything else faded away. Liyana stirred, her eyes opening to find him watching her. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning, my love. You are thinking deep thoughts," she observed. "I can tell." "Just thinking about how lucky I am," Owen said. "How grateful I am for every day I've had with you." She reached out and took his hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "We have had good life, Owen Lancaster, better than I ever dreamed possible when I was a young woman dying in snow." "The best life," he agreed. They rose and went about their morning routine, movements slow but sure. Breakfast together in the kitchen of the home they had shared for 4 decades. A walk around the property to see how things were growing and changing. Time with grandchildren who stopped by for visits. The simple, precious rhythms of a life well lived. As evening fell, they returned to their favorite spot on the porch. The view had not changed much in all the years they had sat here. The same mountains rose against the sky. The same cottonwood tree that had been a sapling when they married now towered over the yard, providing shade in summer. The same stars would emerge as darkness fell, wheeling overhead in their eternal dance. "I have been happy," Liyana said suddenly. "In case I never said it enough, in case you never fully knew, you made me happy, Owen, every single day of our life together." "And you made me happy," he replied. "You gave me purpose and meaning and love. You gave me everything that matters." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened, hands joined, hearts joined, souls joined after 40 years of sharing life. Behind them in the house, lights glowed warm. Their family was there, gathering for dinner as they did most evenings now. Laughter and voices drifted out to the porch, the sounds of home and love and continuity. This was what they had built together. This was what had come from one man's decision to help a woman dying in the snow, from one woman's courage to accept that help and build a new life. This was what love looked like when it was given time and nurturing to grow. A family, a home, a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. As full dark settled and the first stars appeared, Owen helped Liyana to her feet. Together they went inside to join their family, to share a meal and conversation and the simple joy of being together. The door closed behind them, and the porch stood empty under the stars, silent witness to a love story that had spanned decades and overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. In the end, it was simple. Owen had found Liyana abandoned in the snow. She had said, "My people left me," and he had become her home, just as she had become his. From that foundation of mutual salvation and love, they had built a life that honored both their backgrounds, that created space for multiple heritages and traditions, that proved love could transcend the prejudices and limitations of their time. Their story would be passed down through generations of Lancaster descendants, told and retold until it took on the quality of legend. But at its heart, it would always be a simple truth, that two people found each other when they needed it most, that they chose each other every day after that, and that the home they built together became a refuge not just for themselves, but for everyone they brought into their circle. The years continued to pass as years do. Owen and Liyana grew older still, their steps slower, their bodies more frail, but the love between them never diminished. If anything, it grew stronger, distilled by time into something pure and essential. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 1928 with a huge gathering that brought together more than 100 family members and friends. 5 decades of marriage, a remarkable achievement in any circumstance, but especially so given the challenges they had faced. At the party, their children and grandchildren gave speeches honoring them, telling stories about their parents' and grandparents' love and dedication. "They showed us what commitment looks like," Nathan said in his speech. "What it means to choose someone every single day, to build a life together piece by piece, to never give up no matter how hard things get. Everything I know about love, I learned from watching them." Emma spoke of her mother's strength and her father's kindness, of growing up in a household where two cultures merged and created something beautiful. "They taught us that our mixed heritage was not something to hide or be ashamed of," she said. "They taught us to be proud of where we came from, all of it, and they taught us that love is stronger than hate always." Thomas, the youngest, spoke last. "I never knew a time when my parents were not completely devoted to each other," he said. "That kind of love, that kind of partnership, it set a standard for all of us. Pa always said that Ma was his home, and she always said he was hers. That is what family is. That is what love is. They showed us every single day." Owen and Liyana listened to these speeches with tears in their eyes, overwhelmed by the life they had created together and the family they had raised. Looking around at all the faces, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, friends old and new, they saw the ripples of that day in 1878 spreading out into the world. One act of compassion, one decision to help rather than ride past, had led to all of this. As they grew very old, into their 80s, Owen and Liyana spent most of their time at home, content to let the world come to them. They still sat on the porch in good weather, still held hands, still shared the comfortable silence of two people who had walked together through life for more than 50 years. In the spring of 1935, Owen fell ill with pneumonia. At 88, his body no longer had the strength to fight off serious illness. Liyana nursed him tenderly, rarely leaving his side. Their children gathered, knowing the end was approaching. On a soft May evening, with Liyana holding his hand and his children surrounding the bed, Owen Lancaster took his last breath. He died as he had lived, with dignity and peace, surrounded by the family he loved. His last words were for Liyana, "My home, my heart, always." "Always," she whispered back, tears streaming down her face. Liyana lived for 3 more years after Owen's death. They were years of quiet mourning, but also of gratitude. She was surrounded by her children and grandchildren, never alone, always loved. She spent her time telling stories about Owen, about their life together, making sure that future generations would know the man he had been, and the love they had shared. On a winter morning in 1938, Liyana passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 85. She was buried next to Owen on a hill overlooking the ranch, where they could rest together as they had lived together. The headstones were simple, but told their story. Owen Lancaster, 1847, 1935, beloved husband, father, grandfather. He found his home. Liyana Ashki Lancaster, 1853, 1938, beloved wife, mother, grandmother. She found hers. The ranch continued under Nathan's stewardship and would eventually pass to his children and then to his children's children. The Lancaster family remained in the area, growing and branching out, but always maintaining connection to the land where Owen and Liyana had built their life together. The story of how Owen found Liyana in the snow became a treasured family legend, told to each new generation. It was a story about love, yes, but also about courage and compassion, about choosing to help when it would have been easier to turn away, about building bridges across divides that seemed impossible to cross. In time, the details of the prejudice and hostility they had faced faded, as such things do when generations pass and society changes. What remained was the essential truth, that two people found each other against all odds, that they chose each other every day, that they built something beautiful and lasting out of almost nothing. Their great-great-grandchildren would visit the graves on the hill, would stand where Owen and Liyana rested and try to imagine what it must have been like in those early days. They would see the ranch spread out below, thriving and productive, testament to the hard work and dedication of their ancestors. They would see the mountains in the distance, unchanged despite the passage of decades. And they would understand, perhaps dimly but truly, that love was the strongest force in the world, capable of overcoming anything. The porch where Owen and Liyana had spent countless evenings remained, restored and maintained by each successive generation. It became a place where family gathered, where stories were told, where the past remained present. Young couples would sit there and hold hands, thinking about Owen and Liyana, hoping their own love would prove as strong and lasting. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the wind was right, it seemed like you could almost hear them there, still two voices joined in conversation, two hearts beating as one, two souls who had found their home in each other and never let go. The story that had begun with abandonment and desperation had ended in love and legacy. Proof that sometimes the best things in life come from the worst circumstances, that hope exists even in the darkest moments, and that home is not a place but a person who chooses to stand with you no matter what. The Lancaster family motto, passed down through generations, came from Liyana's words that first day. He became my home. It was a reminder that family was what you built, that love was what you chose, and that sometimes salvation came in the form of one person refusing to ride past another in need. Owen and Liyana's story, born in snow and hardship, bloomed into something extraordinary that touched countless lives and would continue to do so for generations to come. Their love had been tested by prejudice and isolation, by hardship and loss, by all the challenges that life in the 19th century American West could throw at two people. And their love had prevailed, growing stronger with each challenge overcome, deeper with each year that passed, more precious with each moment shared. In the end, that was their true legacy. Not just the ranch or the family or the material things they left behind, but the example of what love could be when two people committed themselves fully to each other and to building a life together. The story ended where it had begun, in devotion, in home, in love. And that, perhaps, was the most fitting ending of all.